Hello viewers from wherever you're watching us from. You're watching the Gambia's first private TV station, the QTV Gambia, and we're broadcasting from our studios here on Kairaba Avenue. My name is Aliou Cisse, and it's now time for your weekly State of Affairs program, aired every Tuesday at 9 p.m. and repeated on Sunday at 10 a.m. Well, on behalf of everyone here at QTV, we wish you all a happy new year, and then we thank you for really making this program for what it is. I mean, your feedbacks have been really helpful in terms of improving on the content of this program. And 2023 has been a quite eventful year, and then joining me tonight to discuss, 2023, and then discuss, what we should expect in 2024. I'm joined on the program by Dr. Ismaila Cisse, a politician by the way, but also a political science lecturer at the University of the Gambia. Doctor, good to have you on the program.
Thank you very much, and happy New Year to you.
Yeah.
Happy New Year to every Gambian, both in the Gambia and also in the diaspora.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ismaila Cisse. And also in the studio, I have Said Mati Jau, who is the Executive Director of the Center for Research and Policy Development. Said Mati, good to have you on the program.
Thank you, Aliou. Thank you for having me. Happy New Year to everyone, and Happy New Year to my professor. I'm happy to share a platform with him.
Indeed, quite interesting. Well, discussing, we'll go to both of you just to start. How has the year 2023 been like for you?
I think for me personally, it has been great. I think it has been a challenging year, a year where I took off a one-year gap at the university, where I had to focus on the Center for Research and Policy Development. And I think within that period, I think CRPD has been very stable. And I think for us generally, it has been good. And even today, the staff is celebrating and they're partying, enjoying the country. At least that shows that for us at our own level, it has been good, but also shows that there have been a lot of work that has to be done. And most of this also work has been connected to most of the transformations that are ongoing, particularly when it comes to the security sector reform. I think last year was a great year for us, especially the kind of partnership that we have built with the Office of National Security, and how we're also helping them to strengthen the relationship between civil society and the security institutions. So, at least for me, my scorecard has been a great year, at least, yeah.
Doctor, a lecturer, a politician, you back a part-time job in China. How was 2023 year for you?
Very exciting.
Okay.
I've been very busy. I think it's been one of my busiest years, apart from teaching at the UTG. I've been teaching in Japan as well. Obviously, you mentioned China. China is one as a visiting professor. Japan as a visiting professor as well. Did some part of the Erasmus visiting professorship at Edinburgh and also Brussels. But also, I've been part of many research consortiums, global research consortiums, looking at migration. One of them is the EU-funded €3 million grant, looking at migration narratives and counter-narratives in the Gambia. I sit on at the board of that consortium, involving about 11 countries across Europe, and think tanks and organizations. So I've been very busy academically. UTG has also been keeping me busy, teaching at the master's program, obviously, but also teaching at the undergraduate program, at the same time heading the political science department. So it's been good. It's been a very good year, and I've seen a great progression academically.
Interesting. Well, and it's all part of national development. But tonight, we'll be looking at the major events that took place in 2023. Of course, from the local government elections. Of course, there were some low moments as well. The death of our former Vice President, Dr. Aliou Badra Diouf. Of course, irregular migration is having so much impact on our young people. Of course, the popular paradox for the National Assembly was also a talking point in this country, the OIC hosting, and of course, the conviction of Bailo in Germany, among other things. We'll look at them. Of course, some legislations were enacted. Of course, just include the former president's bail, and of course the anti-corruption bill, among all those things. Said Mati, let me start with you. We had a quite peaceful local government election. When you look back in that election, do you think we have come a long way in terms of ensuring we have a democratic election in this country?
Well, for me, I'm a strong believer in our democratic project, and I think our elections generally have been, to to a large extent very credible, and I think that's what we have also witnessed in the last local government elections, and I think it was heavily contested like any elections. Of course, there are room for improvement, but generally I see that we are in a progress to consolidating our democracy, and I think today Gambians are more engaged politically. Of course, sometimes you see so many interesting conversations on social media, but largely the general psyche is that democracy is the trajectory that we want to move ahead, and we've seen this in terms of the participation in the local government. Even though compared to all the previous elections, the turnout wasn't as as promising, but of course it's about local elections, and I think these elections, especially from 2021 all the way to 2023, has provided us, many of us in the civil society, an opportunity to explore what the challenges in our electoral processes are, and how do we work on fixing those issues. So likely I say, and I'm very confident, it's not only me saying it, most of the reports are also saying that the Gambia is consolidating its democratic process. I mean, people, there's a strong belief within us and also globally that these things are happening, despite the frustrations here and there. But largely, I think we're on right track, and I think we have just to fix the missing links. And I usually talk about constitution, electoral reform as part of those missing links that we need to fix.
And Doctor, what were major highlights? Of course, perhaps if there's low lights as well as far as the local government elections.
What I think you've seen, Mati has really touched on all the points that are critical in that the political space has been opened. And I've argued that politics started in earnest in Gambia in 2016. Prior to 2016, there was no politics in Gambia. The rules were not, the space wasn't open and the rules were not favorable. What we've seen after 2016 is that the current government has opened the political space, and you could see competition. Just look at the local government elections, look at the chairmanship elections. These were hotly contested. Look at the mayor, the Banjul election. These are hotly contested. The fact that now we are doing opinion polling, predicting and projecting the trajectory of the outcome of elections is also something new. And the fact that now young people are engaged in politics, women are engaged in politics. I've heard people say, yes, the political space is more polarized, but it comes with democracy. What do you expect in a democracy? We can't all be on the same side. There will be conflicting views, there will be conflicting interests, but how we really reconcile these different interests and these different opinions and these different needs and these different wants is what that defines us as a nation. But remember, when we say transition, in most cases people focus on the legal aspects of Gambia's transition. We don't talk about the societal transition. When a society transitions from autocracy or quasi-autocracy to democracy, when a country transitions, society transitions, and when society transitions, the state is slower to transition because the state has bureaucratic structures that are very slow to transition. Society transitions faster than the state. And when that happens, there is a mislink between these two, and people think that the state is slow in doing this and doing that. No, the state takes time to transition because the state is a behemoth. The state has structures. It is a bureaucracy. It's easy for us to transition. What about the economic transitions? What about, because Yahya Jammeh control almost every aspect of the economy, how do we transition the economy from where the state was intervening in the market to having a truly free state society? What about the political transitions? Still, it's not clear yet the kind of political trajectory Gambia will take. Is Gambia heading towards a one-party state? No, sorry, not a one-party, obviously, not that one. But a dominant, are we maintaining a dominant party system that we've practiced since Jawara 30 years, APRC 22 years? Are we going to see NPP in government for the next 25 years, for example, 30 years, continuing with the Tata? Or are we heading towards a two-party state where UDP, NPP will be, just like we see in Sierra Leone, SLPP, APC and other countries? Or are we going towards a multi-party state? Or are we going to see disruptions like we saw in Senegal, Macky Sall coming in, PDS, coming with RPR, 3 years, he won elections. Now, but these things are not clear yet because all these things have to transition, and it's a link. If you focus on legal transitions and you got the social, economic, and the political tensions wrong, the whole project fails. So everything must go in tandem so that you have an even a unified transition that can usher it into a new phase. For now, it's going to be slow. I understand governments are impatient, one thing, but the state, like I said, acts slowly than society. That's why we're always eager, we're always impatient, want things to happen fast. But the state has structures which are very bureaucratic. And for the state to do things, it takes time than us individuals that are free to do things freely. Just to close it there,
yeah,
I think we are on right track.
Yeah. And Samari, just before we wrap up this one, I mean, you heard him talk about the issue of one-party system and all those things. But I mean, from the outcome of the last local government elections, I mean, what does it tell about the balance of power in our Gambian politics?
No, for me, I'm seeing, like, in my own view, Gambians want a multi-party system, and I think we're going to see, you know, sort of a multi-party politics. But you can have multi-party politics still. You have, like what he was trying to explain, two-party dominant. And right now, in terms of the public discourse, you see NPP and UDP, you know, dominating the public conversation. And I think, for me, if we were to go with that trajectory, these two are likely to be that. But of course, you know, there are a lot of Gambians that are also dissatisfied with both political parties. And I think this is where the point of disruptors coming in, you know, third leg or fourth leg, you know, people can start to look at that. And of course, what we're also seeing is that political parties are just not sleeping. I mean, of course, there is this old reform for NPP. They are, you know, they are organizing themselves, bringing in people. You know, there are that elements, those elements that are that need to be there. But for me, in terms of the public opinion, what people are saying, they want a multi-party sort of democracy, which I think is going to be the way forward. And sometimes, you know, for me, political parties, there are those that want to win elections. There are those that, I mean, every political party wants to win elections, but there are those that also influence society, because he talks about also social transitions. And sometimes with my students, I used to teach them that in this country, citizens, Gambians are more advanced than the country itself. I mean, the way we think, what we want, what we see, it is so much like, sometimes when you hear some people talk, you feel like they want to compare us with America and other countries. I mean, but we need to accept a reality. And the reality is that there have been problems and we're starting somewhere. And in that process, things will have to evolve. New leaders are emerging, new political leaders are also coming. And so people have to, all these things have to be clear, like Doc said. But I think also for me, by 2026, at least it will be very clear, because at least that will be, you know, second election in a consolidating process. For me, then
I don't think by 2026. I mean, nothing will change in 2026. Let's think of 2031, 36. Things will start to change a bit, politically speaking. But also this issue of a third force. It's not. I mean, if you understand government, politics, and society, not at the surface level, at the deeper level, you'll understand that a third force has no chance in 2026. As we speak, the reality is, it is NPP, UDP that currently dominate the political landscape. I think anybody who is thinking of a third force in 2026, you are wasting your time. The elections is already a foregone conclusion in 2026. I
mean, I wouldn't say, because, like,
so once you're done, we'll just move on to
because
we
I also think,
cover,
like, if you look at the way Barrow came into power, that was coalition, but it also shows the...
It's a grand coalition, not only a coalition.
Yeah, grand coalition.
Everybody against Jammeh.
Yes.
Can we get the same in 2026? No.
Possibly. I don't think so. Because, you know,
I don't think, I mean, if you understand the political leaders currently that hold sway, you'll realize that a grand coalition of the nature we had in 2016 is nearly impossible in 2026. I
mean, I also agree that the context also doesn't, you know, it's not necessarily calls for it. But of course, you know, people have seen the possibilities of such coalitions. And I think already we are seeing people also calling for such. And if that happened, you know, it worked before, it can work again. And this is also part of the Gambian side.
And of course, let's move on. It's quite interesting. I mean, in 2023 also we saw, we all, mourn the demise of former Vice President rather in office, Dr. Ali Obadra Diouf, and of course, the late Aluke Jammeh, who was our Gambian High Commissioner to Sierra Leone. We also saw the state, organize a burial for Solo Sandeng, who was killed in 2016, and 4 or 5 years later, they were able to organize a befitting burial for him.
I think we've seen some high-profile deaths, which were very tragic. Not only them, I think the former ambassador to the U.S., what's his name again? Fadera also, I think, passed away in 2016. I think there was another ambassador as well. The former vice president was a superstar, I would call it. He was about to change the governance landscape of this country. He came up with brilliant ideas, very innovative ideas, using his experience and his expertise as a World Bank technocrat. He changed the Ministry of Higher Education when he was the minister. And when he came as vice president, the first speech he gave instilled hope among many Gambians.
Sent a
and
strong message.
Yeah, exactly. I think his death, while tragic also, we've lost a great son. We lost a great technocrat. We still mourn his death. I know him personally. I've engaged him at a very personal level when he was minister, but also when he was vice president. So I know the kind of person he was, and his demise really left a big gap in the human resource chamber of this government.
Indeed, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think for me, my first experience was when we were doing Afrobarometer in 2018. You know, before we usually send invitations to government officials, but for me, when he just walked in as the only minister in that briefing, for me, sent some, very important message that he was a serious guy. He was someone that was interested in knowledge. And I think, listening to his speech, the first one, but also even during the retreat, government retreat, I think a lot of people do not pay attention to that. I think that was more like, for me, it was an inspiration to say, this is our country, and whatever we have to do with it is up to us. And I remember even taking some of his footage, especially with the security sector, when he talked about the need for us to professionalize, to help professionalize our security institutions, to help take care of men and women that are serving. For me, that remains an inspiration, and that also continue to contribute to the work that we do when it comes to building relationship with security sector. And so, so we've, and sometimes I say in this country we always forget. We forget easily. And for me, I don't want to forget about all these individuals, for very long that have continued to contribute to develop this country until today. We have this opportunity to sit here and discuss this. And so Gambians need to keep praying for people that have served, keep remembering them. And I think this is the way that we need to build a country that, to inspire generations before us.
Do you think we still have people like him in the government?
Yes, but I think the most important thing is to build people like him, is to create people like him. The future is the key. I think what we need to do now is to do an overhaul of our education sector to ensure we create people like Aliou Badara Diouf. Not one Aliou Badara Diouf. We need hundreds of thousands of Aliou Badara Dioufs.
But doctor, what is wrong with the education system? You always emphasize the education system. This is something you've always been emphasizing.
The figures tell you. Look at the pass rate of mathematics and English in the last 2 verses. When other countries like Liberia, Ghana, Sierra Leone were having 97, 98, 90, 95% pass rates, we are celebrating 5% pass rate. Shift from 3% to 5%. Which is not good. And I've always argued that other countries are heading towards what they call innovative teaching and learning. How I was taught 30 years ago at Brikama Primary School, I was being prepared for a different world to navigate. If you want to teach my child today like that, he or she is going to navigate a different world in 20, 25 years' time. You're not preparing him for that world. He will fail in that world. And the world has changed. We are moving into AI. We are moving into drones. We are moving into technology. We are moving into the digital world. So we need to change the way we teach. And also we need to be learn. They need to be more critical now, more creative. They need, teaching has changed. Go to other countries. The teacher now is at the periphery. The child takes the center stage in learning. But we still teach them the same way you're teaching. Things have to change. Now, we have many problems in the education sector. You cannot have a country that has morning shift, afternoon shift. Having teachers that are barely motivated. If I was a teacher, and before I left the house, my wife said, "Mani boto minto Germans here, cause power teeth," and I go to class. I teach from morning 8 to evening 7. And look at the teacher-student ratio. One class, you have 60 students. So we need to really now rethink basic education in this country. It is the key. If you get basic education wrong, don't bother yourself in investing in other sector because it will fail in the medium to long term. Agriculture will fail, infrastructure, everything, because everything hinges on basic education, the human resource base of the country. So the focus should be, how do we now rethink our relationship with WAEC? How do we ensure now we change the way we teach, the way we learn? What are the innovative ways? What do we do to reform the entire? It needs an overhaul. It needs root and branch reform. not branch reform, root and branch. We need to sit and reflect on what is going wrong in the education sector. Believe me, when I look at the current crop of kids, I've been at UTG for 14 years. St. Matty was my first student. I've seen a huge drop of quality from St. Matty to my last student I'm having now. Every year the quality drops, and when the quality drops, I get demotivated. Yeah. I've seen it because I'm in the sector. I see the problems of the sector, and believe me, the kids, we are not preparing them for the future. Every generation builds the country for the next generation. We have to build it for the next generation. They are coming to build it for the generation coming up. But if they're not prepared, they cannot do it. So,
St. Matty, I mean, you also lecture at the University of the Gambia. I mean, before
you're
on a break, you have been on and off. We hope to have you in the next semester. Yeah. I mean, when do we start?
I mean, for me, I mean, Doc has basically outlined everything. But I say even before that, early childhood development, you know. Yeah, like this nursery school, we just look at it as nursery school, go and drop kids, but that's where the motivation, that's where everything starts. I mean, you know, I'm a young dad, I'm looking at this, I'm interested in also how kids are learning and all those different stuff, but I'm interested in new models, new ways of teaching, you know, this Togo table issue, I mean, like just writing, cramming. We need to move away from that. We need to, for me, education should be about inspiration. It should inspire the individual, and you can inspire people.
Are you saying there's a problem with the curriculum then?
I mean, there's a holistic problem. There's a whole problem. You know, I'm interested in history. Kids are not interested in history. I believe, like, you know, you need to know where you're coming from to know where you want to go to. But you know, they're not looking at that. They're more interested in technology, but we're not preparing them for those things. They are into social media. We complain about that. Today we are seeing a lot of changes within our society, but we're not linking it to the interests of this generation. For us, most of the older generation, what they want to do, shut it down, do this, don't do that. But sometimes you need to understand society and how it is evolving and knowing where people are, so you prepare people towards that, because the whole world is moving towards that way, and we have to be prepared.
Because otherwise, what will happen is we will not be able to provide employment for people, young people in 15, 20 years' time.
Yeah, I even go beyond to higher education. Look, today, for me, the other time, I mean, like right now at UTG, I believe we should be teaching you talking about migration. We don't teach course on migration. We should be teaching about these current issues. You know, for me, when I usually like to teach what is more contemporary, but also this is difficult, because then you have to talk about material. The investment in education is almost like nothing, because you are talking about building a society. And today, education is one better way of redistributing resources across the whole country, ensuring that everybody has the opportunity to go to school. And, you know, even farmers are not farming. All of us are kids of farmers. Now other kids will not farm, but you have to prepare them to the other world. How do you do that?
It's quite interesting.
But just on a final note, remember, if we are to provide employment for the young people, we need to understand industry. What does industry need in 15 years' time? What kind of manpower do they need? It is when you now prepare and design a curriculum to prepare labor for industry. That is why Gambia needs a new industrial policy, whereby government, academia, and industry will work together to make sure that we map out a strategy that tells us exactly what does industry need. And I like the fact that higher education is working on vocational institutes, because this is the future. I mean, there are people at UTG, they have no business at UTG, but because they see it as a default option. You finish grade 12, you have nothing else to do, you have somebody to pay for you, UTG. You just come to, you don't even know what you are doing at UTG. You don't even know why you are doing development studies or political science or economics. So, and we are producing a lot of these graduates for which market?
And many cram just to pass exams with A+.
Well, not my course, because I listen to the budget speech, and next minute I ask them questions on the budget speech.
That's a problem when it comes to Dr. and Sanjay. I mean, most of them, they
like, you see, there are certain things, sometimes when these kids will look at us and say, we want to be like you. But I said, these are the people that grill us. We don't have it easy. Sometimes that is also the aspect that we need to look at, because we are teaching young people to be so entitled. They focus more on their pass mark. than rather than the skills that they get.
Like mastering
the mastery of the subject and all those different stuff. They give me C, but today, I'm doing stuff that I like doing.
Exactly. Quite interesting. I mean, that will now lead me to, because we're still thinking about education, that now leads me to the university. I mean, moving from the kind of in campus to Faraba. There has been so much talks around it. I mean, you both have been, still at the university. I mean, what's your take?
I mean, like, you see, like sometimes, I get frustrated with these petty talks.
Yeah.
I was at the UTG as a student when, we were moving from Faraba, all these different places. We moved from Birkawa. Like, yeah, this area was our hood.
Okay.
And for us, it was easier compared to those that were here before us. Talk to those that were there at the Universal Extension Program. And this country took loans, took money to build an infrastructure, and you have some people say, I don't want to move. That is disrespectful.
Yeah.
In my own opinion, we don't need to even have those kind of discussion, because we do not build a university for those people. We build the university for the future of this country. And I was happy that the Minister of Higher Education. For me, like, I've always been confident. Like, sometimes, when these talks come, people will hide behind politics and all that. I am happy that he went head on to talk about this issue, because that's what we have to do in this country.
Congratulations, Honorable Minister Pierre Gomez.
I mean, like he said, like the minister said, one phrase he mentioned, which was very good, was like, Faraba is irreversible.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think I teach at UTG.
Yeah.
And I have seen how this quarter life, Gambia College, I even once fought with another Gambia College. Almost, not fought, but almost fought because of space at Gambia College. And I've seen how one class, which takes 100 students, I have 100 registered students, and I'm having a classroom, the capacity is 20 students. Now, 20 students, but we squeeze 50 students, and 50 stand outside. Now, now, they built a brand new infrastructure at Faraba for the university to move. For me, this would not be a debate. Yeah. We should be proud and celebrate that, obviously. And I think that is what we've done.
Most of them were complaining about the issue of transportation, that buses were not enough.
You see, this self-entitlement. Yeah. Thank God I'm not like, I'm not.
Gambia is the only country that gives you free bus to go to Faraba.
Yeah, because for me, even the buses, I was like, if I had my way, like, it's not sustainable the way they do it. Yeah. There are people that can afford transportation. Let those people pay for them, and then they subsidize for those that cannot afford it. Because it's
how
not like,
will you know? How will you know?
I mean, there are students. Most of the students at UTG are working. Some of them are working. Invest transportation in your education as well. I mean, they will say that. I mean, like, of course, I can say this because I'm not looking for political power. But this is the reality that people that are in politics have to think about. It's not like everything you give to people for free.
Yeah.
How are you gonna survive? How can this country survive on free lunch every time?
I think we've moved. Faraba is good. People are happy. And I think with time, these things, moving a university is big business. It's not child's play, because you don't only move people. You move infrastructure, you move administration, you move logistics. This is a Herculean task. It's not easy. It doesn't come easy. But I think with time, before 1, 2, 3 semesters, Faraba will be our home. And
even now, for me, what I'm saying, like, it's an opportunity for students to be better, to start thinking about how to get jobs, how to create own jobs within campus. Like university campus, now they have an opportunity to do those things. We did not have that. The way we did that was, during Students' Week, we spent 1 week together, talk about, and most of us were very active, going all over the place. But now they have an opportunity, and that's what there is. And a university campus, it will transform this entire society.
Sure.
Interesting. Well, congratulations to the Honorable Minister Pierre Gomez. I mean, of course, the former Vice President, the late Ali Batra Diouf, who was also one time the Minister of Higher Education. Let's now move to the National Assembly. I mean, like I said, I mean, they were giving Prados. I mean, there were so much talks around National Assembly members giving themselves, multi-million watt Prados, and of course, I mean, they're driving around. Said Marty. Do you think that
I supported it. I think I supported it at that time. I had a debate on it. But for me, I work on the governance issue. And when it comes to governance, mobility is essential. It's not like a luxury like people say. You have to move to meet people, to talk to people, to engage with people. And I've been seeing that. Like sometimes I go to a meeting where a National Assembly is supposed to be there, but they're supposed to be at the Parliament as well, and they have also another meeting. Like now it's very easy that they can, work easily. But where I am not happy is the fact that sometimes when it comes to their own welfare, it is a done deal.
Yeah,
but then when it comes to
very
the
united
issue,
when it comes to issues that affect their welfare.
They are very united when it comes to that. But when it comes to the rest of us, they don't care.
Yeah.
And they show in the National Assembly sometimes that they don't care. But we're happy that they have passed some bills like the anti-corruption bill.
Exactly.
But we'll talk about those things. But so for me, those are the kind of frustration. I want to, and the other thing is like, what frustrated me also, especially when they throw this judges bill, is that as if our lawmakers were just elected to throw bills away. They are lawmakers. Lawmakers supposed to make laws. If a bill is there, if it is not okay, your job is to look at it and fix it and make sure that it is good for the rest of society. That's why you are a representative. But everything comes out, you kill. Constitution, throw out. Judges bill, throw out. You have to take time to work on those things. And for me, those are the things that frustrate me. And one time I think I did talk about that. But also, I feel the National Assembly today, they know their functions. And somebody was telling me that they know their function. They do all those things, all the rituals. As stated, they do it. But the responsibility. What is their responsibility? The responsibility is on behalf of to take care of this country, to ensure that they're doing that. They do that to an extent, but sometimes they put so much politics that they confuse the rest of society. And those things need to change.
And Doctor, I mean, the
yes,
Prados,
I think
they also pass other bills,
they have new
bill, the
cars.
anti-corruption bill.
I mean, sometimes we tend to drama Prados. They have new cars, yes. Whether it's Prado or it's Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah, but we have to know so that people will know, okay, National Assembly are driving Prados.
They have mobility, which is good. I've seen lawmakers standing on the road looking for lift. Which is very dangerous in a country. Lawmakers, look, the legislature is the third branch of government, apart from the judiciary and the executive. If we pamper the executive and the judiciary with perks for them to be able to perform effectively and be given the respect a state deserves, I see no reason why we shouldn't give the National Assembly members. I agree with it. Now we are pampering them. We've increased their salaries. We've given them clothing allowance and other that come with it, and a new Prado. Now let them perform to the expectation of the citizens.
Where does this leave us next parliamentary election?
Well, for me, I always throw it back to the city. Sometimes when I talk, for me, I look at both sides. Those people that are there, they are sent there by some people. Okay. And it is up to the people to decide. Doc was talking about society transitioning and all that. We see that here the cost of politics is more on transactional nature. People need to move beyond that. They need to understand what these institutions are there for and focus on that and ensure that they identify the right people. But of course, I always don't blame the people that are there because for me, I believe representation. Anybody can do representation. But the issues also, structurally, at some point we had this conversation of the language, maybe making it more local that could have contributed and also carry people along. But at the end of the day, who goes to the National Assembly is the responsibility of a constituency. And it is every constituency, their responsibility. That's why I was talking, if the people don't know their responsibility, they elect people that go there, they will not know their responsibility. They will think like building roads is their way, or they will use that to campaign. So people must focus on those issues.
What is the solution then, say?
Doc, sometimes people will say civic education, awareness, but I think people generally know what is good for them.
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. That is why we get it wrong sometimes, because it goes back to the basics education. Tell me one course at senior, at primary school, which teaches you about the National Assembly.
None.
Which teaches you to understand how the state functions, how cabinet functions, what is the role of a National Assembly, how immigrant. It doesn't exist. So everything. That's what I'm saying. So everything has to do with the basic education. Which course? Today, everybody's carrying corruption. Which course teaches you in primary school about ethics and professionalism and integrity in public office? None. Which course does it? No. So we think that these things will just come inside your head and you instill. No, these things are instilled from childhood, and you grow with them.
Doc, I also see a difference, and I think for us, maybe because I went into the arts and did government and all those different stuff, maybe that's also the problem. But I remember there used to be this SES, and there were those things, not to the detail. But at least there was that. But I'm not sure right now what is the current way of doing that. But I agree. I mean, education way, but I will go back to also civic education. I mean, because sometimes people need
sometimes
to be
it's
reminded.
late.
Yeah, yes, it's late.
You see, there is a certain level. You see, the brain is very fragile, and there's a certain the farm from day tolo is you cannot do anything with it.
Yeah.
It's gone. So we have to catch them young. It's when the brain is a bit now. It's when it's now ready to take information and instill these values. So you cannot wait until I'm 35, 38 years. I've already had my worldview and my values. Want to come and give me civic education? I just
You know the other challenge we have, and I think with surveys you also see it in terms of education. You see that almost half of the population is no formal education. You know, sometimes for me, this is the question that I keep asking. How do we build a society where, you know, you have half of it no formal education? How would they even understand what we are saying? And you have some that only stop at primary school. You have others that stop in tertiary school. And sometimes it's difficult. It's difficult to do that. But that's why you have to also, this is for me, this is where I think, like, as part of the solution, this is where the National Council for Civic Education is also needed, because they can provide unpoliticized civic education for the general population. And so therefore we need to invest in an institution like that.
You talk about legislation. I mean, we have seen 2023, I mean, the parliament was able to pass the former president's bill. Of course, I mean, we have the anti-corruption bill, the commission of inquiry bill, all were passed.
Yeah, I mean that's it's a welcome development, especially with the anti-corruption bill, for instance. I think that one, the campaign has been ongoing for like since 2019.
2019, yeah.
And I was telling Mar, you know, that Mar and Gambia participate, and everybody that have worked on it, because they're the ones that focus on this anti-corruption.
Yeah.
And I think they've been able to not only advocate, but in the process also supported, help parliamentarians understand, but also work with Ministry of Justice. And I think for us, this is the role of civil society. Sometimes, you know, we just advocate, but also ensure that we create a platform for different stakeholders. People will want us to be attacking government. That's not our job. Our job is to create a platform for people generally to participate. And when government doesn't do what is there, we challenge it. If need to go to the court, we do that. I mean, but to ensure that there is a platform for the collective growth of the country. And so most of these bills, I think they contribute to that, especially the victims bill. I think that's that's highly welcome as well, because for the victims.
Doctor, the former president's bill, which is quite controversial, we saw, I mean, some National Assembly members walk out of the chamber.
Yeah, I mean, what do you expect? How do you want us to treat our former presidents? We need to give them the incentives for them to be able to perform. So I support the bill as passed, and I support all the bills as well. And I think it's been a very, very, very exciting year for the National Assembly, especially these bills that they have passed. Yeah. So I think one of the credit we can give them is that they've really passed some very critical bills. I agree, the former president's bill was very, very controversial. But again, hey, what do you expect? Other countries are recently, you know, when the shortest lived prime minister in the UK, what's her name again? Liz Truss. Yeah. I think was only for 3 months. You know how much he's going to get after 3 months in power? I mean, obviously, these are things that former presidents have to get. These are privileges, so that when they are serving, they serve with dignity, they serve with integrity, they serve with public service as a guiding principle. So when they finish their office, they need to live in dignity and give them all the privileges that a state can accord them.
Quite interesting. And another topical issue in 2023 was the demolition of structures. I mean, with the National Trust authorities said, I mean, they were illegally occupying those spaces. I mean, Doctor, there have been so much talks around it that some people are condemning the act, while others welcome the move. Which side of the coin do you blame? Doctor?
I don't have a side.
Do you support?
I'm on both sides. I mean, I support the spirit.
Okay.
Of the demolition exercise. There were so many encroachments which really matter the neka. Then you see someone, you know, you have your fence, then you build a small shop outside your fence on the road and you rent it out for $5,000. You get my point. So I think the demolition was good. My only issue was the manner in which it was. Sometimes I see impatience and sometimes rudeness from those who are doing it. You see, when you do certain things, yes, you are following the law, but be patient with people, be nice to people, explain to them. This is the state we are representing, and the state should behave in a particular way. because this is the police, the NRA, and the physical planning, and it's the state. So when you go to people trying to do your work, do it in a very professional, very nice way. Even if they are rude to you, be nice to them.
You're rendering service. Whatever you do with government
is
is
service. But again, I think one thing we should learn from the demolition exercise.
Exactly. That would have been my
I've looked
question.
at it and I realized that Gambia needs a reform in terms of how we give prison sentences. We need to start considering what they call non-custodial sentences. There are people who are not supposed to sleep in mile 2 because all they do is to waste taxpayers' money because we feed them. Now, you've destroyed some of these structures. They are lying there. Bring prisoners. Give them, some prisoners should be given community service. Let's say they catch you with a joint or some kind of misdemeanor. 6 months, 1 year in prison. Don't go to mile 2. Give them community service. Let them clean Caraba Avenue. Let them clean the beaches. Let them clean as a punishment. Why should everybody go to mile 2? And mile 2 is congested. One of the ways to decongest mile 2 is to make sure that we impose what they call non-custodial sentences so that those whose crimes are misdemeanors and they are going for 6 months or less than 1 year, give them community service. Let them clean public spaces. What would be wrong with you if I commit a crime misdemeanor? Give me a vest. You put their community service. I'll be cleaning Caraba Avenue. So the streets will be clean. But what if we've seen is that they've not demolished the structure, they're leaving it there. And what you are avoiding, these are public safety hazards, in fact, because they are there.
And Doctor, will you say, physical planning in this case have really failed in their responsibility?
I just see that the responsibility for me is just to destroy.
But they were here when these people were erecting their structures on these highways.
Why did there so many people?
So what happens? Why now?
But at the end of the day, for me also, it's not about when and how. It is like today, we feel like it is needed. For me, my idea is, like Doc was saying, for me, I wouldn't just wake up and then destroy everything. Because you also have to think about that all these people, these are young people mostly, that are also trying to find ends meet. Yes, you are doing your job, demolition, you want pave, and I think generally, especially those with cars, they really agree with this. But the everyday people, I think they're finding it very difficult to survive because it's also their business. It's their business. So for me, I don't know what side.
I think a comprehensive strategy was also lacking because you see, they need to needs basis because But when I listen to them say we are following the laws of the land, guys, if we are to follow the laws of the land to the letter today, we'll close a lot of restaurants in this country because if inspectors go and inspect some of these restaurants, they are breaching health, safety, and hazard standards, they close them. If you are following the laws of the land today, believe me, I can tell you that 65 to 70%, even more, of our cars are not roadworthy. They are not supposed to run our roads. They'll park them. If we are to really follow the laws of the land. And many other stuff. There are buildings that are supposed to go down because they're not following health and safety standards. They're hazardous. So I think for me, the strategy would have been on a case-by-case basis. There are some structures they've destroyed, they're supposed to be destroyed. But there are some structures, to me, why destroy? What are you going to put there? Like, why destroy it? If it's there, it's not a hazard, it's not a danger. It's even beautifying some areas. Just leave it. So I think this would have been a bit more flexible. I think the inflexibility is what I have an issue with.
But the other thing that I don't understand, maybe it's not linked, but there are road constructions all over. They dig every place. Some places have been dug for 6 months, nothing happened. So the idea for me, I don't understand. You destroy things, you just leave it like that. You don't take care of it. You dig, you want to work, you don't do. Those things need to change. I think this has to do with.
I understand we're running out of time, but let's finally look at this issue of irregular migration. Last year has been a terrible year for the Gambia. So many young people have lost their life on the Mediterranean Sea, Doctor.
Unfortunate. I think young people should understand that opportunities are here. I've seen young people make it in this country. I've seen young people working hard in this country, and they make, in fact, what they are making is much more than what people in the offices are making. I know a young guy who has a motorbike. He makes a couple of $1,000s a day. He does delivery. I know guys who, I know a guy who has this football. So I'm not saying young people to go and do that, but listen, migration is not bad. People can migrate because migration brings development. But it has to be responsible migration. I think I agree with the government, especially the president, when he said that they are going to take a very strong stands against people traffickers, because they're the ones that are really initiating this. Young people need to understand that it is only us who can build this country. We know there are challenges. We're not saying everything is gold and silver in this country, but let us be patient, let us work hard, let us just strive harder and make things better for ourselves. But taking the route that is dangerous, I mean, you saw what happened. We've lost hundreds, if not thousands, of young people in the Atlantic Ocean, and it is tragic.
Set 2024, what are your expectations?
Well, to further consolidate our democracy, like where he was saying, for young people to continue to believe in this country. I mean, for me, I always say, when you have a land, I think that's what our forefathers have given us. There are many people that are struggling to have a homeland, and today you have a homeland. You know, everybody in this country have access to land. I mean, so therefore, with that analogy, I don't see that anybody in this country is poor. Either you want to stay, not, you know, do things that you have to do. But of course, you know, the way that resources are managed also needs to be looked at. But for me, 2024 is going to be another year where we need to strongly and focus on building our future as a country, and to continue to celebrate our wins as a country as well. Because it is maybe too early to celebrate, but I think right now Gambia is really doing well when it comes to democracy, and we should be proud of that.
And in terms of politics, just last week we saw Sabali cross-carpeting to NPP. In terms of politics, are we going to see more cross-carpeting in 2024?
Well, today, I mean, NPP's net has been, you know, casted widely, and so it's part of Gambian politics. For me, there's nothing. I don't discuss those issues even, because it's also part of Gambian politics. People have the right to move everywhere they want to move, because that also makes our politics interesting. You know, you stay there, be a member of CA is not, I mean, it's not interesting for me now. I can move to some other party else. Because at the end of the day, what is important is, like, you are a citizen, you are participating. Wherever you are participating, doesn't matter. Whether it's in civil society, whether a carpenter, what is important is that we love this country and we take care of this country.
I mean, if people can change religion, I've seen people who once said that Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. They were Muslims. They converted into Christianity. I've seen people who said that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the light, and no one goes to the Father but by him. They converted to Islam. So if people can change religion, why can't people change political parties? Like I said, that should not be a debate. People have a right to change allegiance politically if they feel that. People join parties because there's a convergence of values and principles.
And it's voluntary.
And it's voluntary. And the core, we say constitution, the freedom to associate. If you feel that now those values and those principles are not aligned anymore, there's a divergence, leave and the political party where your values align. So for me, I don't think that should be a debate. Right now, what the country should focus on is how to build this country for the future. We owe it to the next generation. And I think we don't have to make the same mistakes that previous generations did. All the problems we are facing today in every sector, from food insecurity to energy insecurity to education, it's because of poor planning by the previous generation, the previous government. You see, development is long term. I would use Badaraju's word, it is not instant coffee. So all the problems we are facing today is not because of this current government, no. It's inherited. Now, this current government's job is now to put a vision for 2050. Every Gambian woman is expected to give birth to 5.6 children on average. 142 children are born in this country every day. It is projected that by 2050, we'll 5 million people. What kind of society are we building for 5 million people? If today we are 2.5, water is not enough, electricity is not enough, food is not enough, classrooms are not enough, how can they be enough with 5 million people? If today 20% of the land mass of the Gambia, urban Gambia, is housing 60% of the population, it is congested. Rents are going up. There is crime. There are social pressures. How do we change that? That is our task now. And when I do a survey of most of the talk shows in this country, most of the media houses, we're not focusing on how we should govern this country. We are focusing on who should govern. And that is the problem. The focus, the debate should be, how do we govern this country? How do we build better roads? How do we build better classrooms? How do we change the education sector? How do we ensure we have energy security by 2025 so that every household has electricity, so that every household has clean running water? This should be the debate. And I think 2024, there should be a shift in our debate to focus on not who should govern this country, but how this country should be governed.
It's quite interesting. Well, I'm afraid with that we bring an end to this week's edition of the State of Affairs program. My guests were Dr. Ismaila Ceesay, political science lecturer at the University of the Gambia. Doctor, it was good to have you in the program. And Said Mati Jau, executive director of Center for Research and Policy Development. Said Mati, it was good to have you on the program. Well, viewers, with that we bring an end. On behalf of the production team, we thank you so much for watching this program, and we wish you a happy and prosperous 2024. Like they both said, I mean, when we talk about New Gambia, it's not just about changing of laws, but it's changing of attitudes towards country, and we're hoping to see a much more united country for the development of this country. Thank you so much for watching, and bye-bye from me. Ciao.